So, Joe, we talk about burnout and overcommitting and all that kind of stuff a lot on this show. And sometimes it's just because you have a problem client. It isn't really necessarily anything that you're doing, but those problem clients do come up. And you, I think, have more experience firing these types of clients than I do. So I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit. I have my 2 cents to weigh in as well. But just to kick things off, what are some red flags that it may actually be time to get rid of these people?
Well, I think there's two, in my mind, two different kinds of problem clients. There are problem clients that are problems because what they need is not necessarily what you do. A lot of times that comes from when you start, you're kind of trying out different things and you start doing different things for different people, and then you focus in on what you're really good at or what really works for you, what works for the business. But you've got this hanger-on client from before who could be a perfectly nice, wonderful person, and yet, it just doesn't work anymore. And those are the tougher ones because they're oftentimes very nice clients. But there's also then the ones that are just very difficult. They tend to demand more than they should. They don't, get you what you need in time and then expect you to be on time. There's all kinds of different ways that they can be just completely annoying. And, in some ways, those clients are easier to fire because they're unlikable, but it's also harder to do it right for those people because you're just, you're not, you're not in a frame of mind to kind of do what you should do, which is, in my book, being honest with them, but being tactful, right? So if somebody's the biggest jerk in the world and they're yelling at you about something that was not your fault and you turn around and start yelling at them, sure, it'll get rid of them probably, but by the same token, that can burn a bridge. It can follow you around. So there's just reasons not to do that. So keeping it tactful, managing your frame of mind in this process is really important. So that's one thing.
What's the other thing?
Well, I mean, offering a transition plan. If you have, let's say that, especially for these clients that you're working with that just don't match your model anymore, if you can find somebody else that you think would be really great for them, for what they need, offering an introduction is, shows that you care. Explaining to them why it doesn't work anymore, that you're not really going to give them what they need anymore because of what you're doing with your business. You're one person, blah, blah, blah. But then but Sally over here is doing exactly what you need, and she's great. I know her, and you should have a conversation. That helps a lot because now you're not just cutting them loose. You're saying, hey, here, I've got your back here. Here's somebody else. So I think that's important. I mean, do you see anything there that doesn't sound right to you, or?
No, that sounds definitely right. I think but even in terms of identifying when to let go, I think you just have to do a gut check. And sometimes the unfortunate thing is what should people do if this client is bringing in a good paycheck for them that they rely on?
Well, that's a great point. I mean, it may be deal with it for now, but the question is, what you really want to look at is to look at the amount of hours that you're working and look at the revenue you're bringing in. Divide the revenue that they're paying by the number of hours it's taking to deliver that and see how that compares with your core business or with your other, good customers. And that'll tell a story a lot of times. I mean, if you're making more per hour with them and they're not a difficult client, they're not making you, not sleep at night, but if they're just a bad fit, and you're making more per hour with them than you are with the other people, you might be focusing on the wrong business, right? But in reality, you're probably going to find that you're putting in a lot more hours to make, each dollar. And that's why it's a good reason to think it through and think about maybe moving on to something else. But, sometimes you can't afford to do that right away. And, sometimes it helps to build up your pipeline a little bit, get some people in the pipeline. As you get confident you're going to close them, then have this conversation. But it might mean a lean month. It might mean a little bit of a lean month. But if you don't align your business with, or your clients with your business, it gets very hard. I always told this story about, we had this customer come at my last startup, and they wanted to give us basically a better part of $1 million to do something for them, but it was a one-off. It wasn't going to move our products forward. It wasn't going to do anything but tie us up doing things that weren't going to grow the business. And we walked away from it because it wasn't worth it. This was this was an employee-based company. There were a lot of people, but it wasn't worth taking everybody's focus off of the ball to do this. And you're in the same situation as a solopreneur. If you're trying to build a business that serves your life, that doesn't eat, 80 hours a week, you've got to have a product that you offer that's relatively standardized to some degree that you can deliver comfortably and not spend too many hours doing something that doesn't help overall.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I also just want to circle back because I think the big thing to avoid some of the big hiccups is just to have this all in the contract. Like when you're putting the scope of work together with this client, make sure you have in there that you can back out, which that they can back out, that you're not contractually obligated to anything. Because at the beginning of a client relationship, it can be rainbows and ponies. And that changes. So I think also just making sure that you're not contractually obligated to stay with them no matter what.
That's a really great point, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't make it because I'm the contract guy.
You are the contract.
But no, I'd say that's a really great point. But you should definitely always have those outs for you and and it shouldn't be I can quit on a day's notice, but 30 days notice, 60 days, whatever makes sense for that particular business you're in. And you always want to be able to get out, and the client's going to want that too. They're going to want to be able to say, this isn't working, my business changed, whatever it is, and be able to get out. And I know it's not fun, but and if somebody agrees to a 1-year contract, you got to live with it, and they have to live with it, and you have to live with it. But if you have something where it's month to month, then that's a lot easier to get out of. But yeah, it's very good to have everything in writing.
Absolutely. Well, that is all I have. Anything else you want to add?
Just to try really hard to stay gracious, don't, it's with some of these people, they're terrible. They're not spending, much money, and they're being very demanding on your time, and they expect more than they ever should have expected given your statement of work. And you could be really tempting just to let them have it. And it's usually not worth doing. Just be the grown up in the room, be nice about it, bite your tongue, and move on and find better clients.
Well said. That is a great note to end on. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please leave that 5-star review, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube, and share this episode with a friend. We so, so, so appreciate it. And we will see you next time on the Aspiring Solopreneur.